Good morning, guys. My name is Kahlil Mariani, and I'm here to tell you how I went through the mountain of motor development. The mountain of motor development is used as a metaphor to show how people go up in skill level for a particular motor skill through various stages. The first stage is a reflexive stage. It begins at birth and ends in about 2 weeks. The movements used during this stage are reflexive, both primitive and postural reflex movements. This is meant to help build up voluntary movement and allow the newborn survival and communication with the new environment. The stage ends with the initiation of voluntary movement. During the reflexive stage, I was doing your typical phylogenetic behaviors. I would follow things such as rooting, which is a reflex that when someone touches the side of my cheek, I would turn to it and try to suck as if I was being fed. Right after the reflexive stage is the pre-adapted stage. It goes from 2 weeks to a year old. Basic manipulative skills such as reaching, grasping. This stage ends with walking and self-feeding and is used for exploring the new environment. When I was in the pre-adaptive stage, I was learning how to perform voluntary movements on my own, such as self-feeding, where I would reach out for food, grab it, and bring it to my face and eat it. Did I start to sit first or crawl first? What do you roughly remember the order in which I started to move around?
At first you would sit, and then you would kind of flop over to your belly, and then it kind of eventually moved on to crawling from there. And then from that time frame, I know when it moved on to walking when you're about 9 to 10 months old.
I'm going to use video games as the motor skill that I developed throughout the years, up until now. The third stage is the fundamental motor pattern stage. It starts when you're roughly 1 year old, ends at about roughly 7 years old. This is where the person will learn the base camp, or the fundamentals you would say, for motor movement, such as running, jumping, throwing, hopping, skipping. These are used as building blocks for context-specific skills, and ends when the individual no longer does these skills simply for the sake of doing it. When it came to video games, did I do it all myself or from the get-go, or did I ask for some help?
No, I had to show you, of course, how to play it first. What basic skills were needed, like the arrow to go forward, the arrow to go back, and how to jump and shoot, because it's when you're 5 or 6, you don't know how to make your guy do that. So I did have to show you, and it took a little bit till you were able to understand how the buttons work to move the guy without looking at the controller. Because at first you would have to look at the controller and you couldn't watch the screen, so you were able to watch the screen and move your fingers at the same time without having to watch what you were doing.
The fourth stage is the context-specific stage. This takes place from 7 to 11 years old. This is where the individual will begin to adapt and modify their motor skills to different environmental tasks to achieve a goal. This stage ends when the individual starts becoming more and more skillful and the action becomes less and less cognitive and more autonomic. You can see how I'm in the context-specific stage with video games through how I don't only play just one video game, I can play multiple video games of different styles. And I'm able to use the knowledge of where the buttons are on the controller and how they work and whatnot to play all the different video games.
Really good at it.
So you would say that the games I played earlier in my life pretty much worked as stepping stones for the later on games?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, they definitely got increased in intensity and just overall just rapid movement, I think, with your hands, with having to play so quick and so fast and think and react at the same time.
The fifth and final stage is the skillful stage. It takes place during the puberty and adolescent growth spurts. You will be the most skillful at whichever motor skill you use in this stage. So where would you say my skill level is at right now?
I would say you're pretty expert level, because I can already hear you in the living room, in your bedroom, talking to people on some kind of headset that you use when you're playing video games. I can hear you loud out here talking to them while you're playing and shooting bad guys. And then I've even seen you like eating and texting while you're doing all that. I don't know how you're not blowing up, exploding in your video games because you're letting go of the remote while you're, grabbing a chicken nugget and then going back to playing.
The sixth stage is the compensation stage. This is used to make up or counterbalance some sort of injury or illness we've had during our lives. It can happen anywhere on the mountain because we cannot predict when or how we'll get injured or sick. Did I have to compensate for any injuries or illnesses to keep playing video games to help maintain my motor skill?
Well, when you were in 8th grade, you did break your left wrist, and at the time you had moved on to playing video games on the computer using the keyboard. And when you broke your wrist, I know you couldn't maneuver your hand in a direction that it was needed to use the keyboard, so you did move to using a controller for a while, and then that kind of stayed using the controller.
So as you can see, I started at the very base of the mountain and have reached its peak with the motor skill of playing video games. And that is all I have for you today.